I'm eligible in 5 years from November 5th to go back on the show. So
Excellent. I'll keep
yeah,
that in mind.
I'll make it out to California. Burbank is where they're taping now, so it will
Uh,
be a different place, but I'll be 82 then, and we'll see
no
if I'm
problem.
up for it.
Yeah,
So,
no problem. That's great. I'll make a note not to try to audition for the contest at that time because I know you'll smoke me. So I'll just
oh, I
avoid
will
that.
smoke you.
I
Yes.
know. I know. Once women get past like 55, 60, you really don't want to do anything competitive with them, like play cards or whatever. You all turn
Yeah.
into to sharks for sure. It occurs to me too that like I would only watch The Price is Right when I was sick. So when, every year during school, I'd be sick at least once or twice and I'd get to watch it then. And then in my professional career training, I'd always get sick every single year. And so there'd be a day or two that I call in sick and I get to watch The Price is Right. And since going low carbohydrate, I have not been sick in like 6 or 7 years. So I don't ever get to watch The Price is Right anymore. That's one of the
Well,
downsides of a
you'll
low
have
carb
to do
diet.
it while you're well, and don't worry about it. And always be well. So,
Uh,
but I look at those pictures. I mean, that's me almost 30 pounds ago.
that's amazing. Wow. That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
look very different now.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I had to look this up just before our interview. You were on with Drew Carey, and we all know Drew Carey has lost a bunch of weight.
Oh,
And
yeah, he looks good now.
low carb. He did it low carb, and I
He did
just
it
had
the
to.
first time low carb, and then during COVID, he didn't look so good, but now he looks good
Oh,
again.
oh, awesome! Yeah, the last article I saw as I was looking it up, it was sometime in 2024, and it was like a low carb or a no carb type diet. He looks great, and it's funny if you've been in this world long enough, you can see not just weight loss, but the way people lose weight, and I could almost predict that that's exactly what he did. You can see, people that have lost a lot of weight, like yourself and him, like your neckline is different, your sides are different. It's not the same as like I lost 20 pounds doing Weight Watchers. The look is completely different. So you could
It
almost like
is.
predict it.
That's a very good observation. Yeah, because I was so glad to see him looking well again. He is the nicest person.
That makes me happy. That
Oh,
makes me
he
happy.
was so gracious to me. He helped me spin the wheel. Now, next time I go on, I'll be able to spin my wheel without him
Exactly.
because,
You got some muscle
you
now. That's
know,
great. Oh, I love it. Tell us a little bit about your professional career, and maybe we can tie into, what you did professionally with also with what was going on with your health to get to the spot that you got in.
well, I was overworking. I was a college professor who didn't know how to say no. And I took on too many classes and wore myself down. So those were not good decisions for me. I had no really good way of boundary setting and put myself first. I was pleasing everybody because, they just didn't have people to teach. And finally, I just had enough. I had a major heart event and everything changed after that. There were different choices to make when I was 65 and had my heart episode almost 12 years ago.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So the first steps of my letting go of my career as a management professor um, was to just look at what's important.
Mm. So when you were growing up, was weight a thing back then? Like, is it something you were
Well,
always like conscious of?
I started getting heavy when I was about 11 to 12, and then I slimmed down in high school because my parents starved me to death.
Really?
Um, yeah, I had to get weighed before I was allowed to eat.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and it was that's where the addiction started. Um, and I would sneak food all the time. I was a full addict while I was a teenager, and when I get upset, I'd overeat. But that's when my parents weren't home. Um, and I just, went away to college, gained the freshman 15, kept that off for a couple of years. My father was always pleased with me when I lost weight, but it was, I thought that was the only way I could get approval in my family. And in my immediate family, it was until my brothers figured it out. And then they just backed right off. It was just my parents. And it was a very difficult perception that I took on for my whole life. So I became an overachiever. I said, well, at least if I wasn't love, I could really achieve. So I spent pretty much my whole life in school, uh, earning all of these degrees. And I don't use some of them, but they were good discipline. I learned how to study. Um, I'm glad I have them, but I would have made different choices in my life.
Yeah.
Looking back at it, it's not important. But now I'm almost certified as a, a metabolic coach, and I just love learning. Let's just say that I really do, and I have to teach myself a whole new discipline where I don't really have the wiring to absorb it, but I'm doing the best I can, and every year it gets easier in
That's
terms of
amazing.
what I understand at the conventions in I do about 4 a year, so
So cool.
I'm feeling really good about it now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember a quote. I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to get this right. And I don't even know exactly who to attribute it to. I think it was maybe James Clear who wrote the book Atomic Habits, where he said,
Yes.
in the beginning of your career, to be successful, you need to say yes. As your career advances, to be successful, you need to say no.
Yeah,
That sounds like a lesson that could have benefited you earlier on.
definitely could have benefited me. And I can quarterback that up, the day after quarterbacking all the time, but I now have boundaries.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
they finally got there. So,
Yeah, gotcha. Tell us about the heart event. What was your health status like? When was that? Um,
okay.
yeah, what
I
happened?
totally ignored everything. I ate a lot of junk food. I glycated myself. I inflamed myself. I oxidized myself, totally oblivious. But in the back of my mind, I knew I had to eat low carb. And on the times I did eat low carb back there, because I learned about low carb when I was 18, before they started teaching bad nutrition in college.
You're kidding.
So seriously, I was 18 years old, took my first nutrition course at a women's college in Maryland, and where I didn't graduate from. Uh, and I knew all about this stuff. I didn't know about ketones, but I knew about low carb because I had an aunt that was a nurse, and she shared that information with me. And I also learned it from my professor at Hood College. And I am amazed at how quickly after, I would have been 25 in 1972, and that's when it all changed.
Wow. Was it almost like common knowledge? Did
I
everybody
don't
kind
know
of,
if it was common knowledge, but my aunt was a nurse anesthetist, and she shared that with me and my father. And we dropped weight really, really quickly. And but then I got talked out of it. You don't know, oh, but that's so bad for you. You need carbs. And that was the death knell, really, almost for me, because I only went back to it a couple of times as a more mature adult. In 280, excuse me, I was 280 pounds when I took a student group to China, and I was so humiliated being that size, and so many of the Chinese would point at me, stare at me, and tell me
oh
I
my
was
goodness.
fat. They would go.
Wow.
I was reduced to tears almost every day.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
different culture over there, a lot more direct.
oh, perfectly lovely people, but oh my God. And it was a really hard trip for me. Then I came back and had to have my gallbladder out. So that started some healing. I got some weight off at that point, probably about 30 pounds, and kept it off. So I'm now down to 250. And until I checked into the hospital, I think it was 230 when I got to Florida. I had lost, 50 pounds, and then I had the heart event. And then my daughter and her husband descended on me and read me the riot act that I had to start taking care of myself, and I had to choose whether I was going to live or not.
Yeah.
And
So what was the heart event? What actually happened?
I had a blocked atrial stenosis, which, I mean, I really could have died at any moment. And then they found and triple bypass. So I had that surgery in October of 12. And that's my new birthday, October 9th. You know, it's another birthday. So, and I healed up very quickly. The only consequence is you're tired. The knitting of the bones back together, that was nothing. There's nothing. It was just a really easy recovery. And my daughter would drag me walking. And you can't drive for a month, so I was at her mercy. So, but she was really good. She'll be listening to this. She really, really
Oh,
helped me a
great.
lot
Oh, that's great.
by, you know, getting my priorities straight.
Mm.
And then I was diagnosed with diabetes in 2 years later. And I had an A1C of 9.6,
Wow.
and within 2 months, it came down to 6.9, the reciprocal. So, and that was on metformin and a little glipizide. And by the summer of 17, I was off all medication and had hit a weight of 175. I mean, there's nothing like going down and down and down and down in weight. And when I crossed into the 100s, it took me at least 2 years to say my weight began with 1. And now, of course, it does. But
Yeah.
and then I reached the 150s by once I got into 150s, I bought myself a new car.
That's
So
good.
the car is almost 4 years old. I've finally broken out of the 150s into the 140s on the last day of August.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Take us back
Yeah,
to the moment where you mentioned you had the heart event and you had to decide whether you wanted to live. What was that moment like, and how
I,
difficult was that
I
decision?
I realized I'd been committing suicide for the last 20 years.
Wow.
I owned it, and I totally surrendered in the hospital. I had fortunately a good surgeon, and I surrendered to everything. I let every clergy person into my room to pray with me. I figured I needed all the help I could get. And we put the word out through a lot of associations for people to pray for me. And they obviously did, because I woke up, my daughter's right in my face in the ICU and said, "You're alive. You lived." And it was, and I just felt such relief at that point because I wasn't in any pain
Mm,
and I could breathe. Oh, I could breathe. I didn't realize how little oxygen I was probably getting for the last 2 years because I wouldn't see a doctor. Now I don't hesitate. I don't do that anymore.
mm.
But I
Oh,
had to start taking care of myself.
yeah.
And it is just on the encouraging side, it is not too late to do that. And then you'll have some regret that you didn't get smarter earlier. So, yeah,
Wow.
kind
That's
of
amazing.
conflicting feelings, but you know, my life is so good now, and the rest of it is going to be fine. Um, I work on keeping my cognition, because I've noticed a little slippage on the memory, but it's like, oh, who sang that rock and roll song from the 60s? You know,
It's pretty
oh,
good.
oh, it was Tommy James and the Shondells, you know? That was, that's what I forgot this morning. So, I mean, it's just, I can live with that. But just keeping learning and moving. And one of the exercises I do now is I try to, dance is the wrong word, but strut like Mick Jagger.
I love it.
He basically moves like a chicken. And if you look at some of his clothes, it's coordinating what he's doing on my little TikTok thing. You write it out and then I try to do it.
I love
And
it.
combining the two, the cognitive and the actually muscle memory, I can do about 6 songs and I have a good time and I'm laughing and just totally enjoying it. And so
Ah,
that's kind of a new behavior. as well as going to the gym, which I have a 1 o'clock appointment with my trainer today, and he's phenomenal. So
That's great.